Okay, hello. All right. I'm back after a bit of a week-long absence. Right after I said I was going to try to do these on the regular, but I haven't been so good about that, but whatever. I'm going to keep trying. Once again, I'm sitting in San Bernardino in the command center. It is hot as hell. So I'm going to make this a quick one. But I said on the last one, if anybody had any questions, I'd love to answer them. I think that'd be fun. It would be cool. And so I did have a couple of questions that I am going to answer. So before I answer any questions, one of them that I'm going to reference is my buddy Andy O'Donnell messaged or put a comment on a video from back in Fairfax, Virginia. One of my best friends that I grew up with. We went to Boy Scouts together, and we were in Desolation together, which is sort of the, I don't know, Cub Scout version of the Masons. And I joined that specifically because I think he told me about it, and they would hold dances, and there was like a girl version of that called the Rainbow Girls, and these guys would have dances, and the Rainbow Girls were cute, and I wanted to dance with them, and so therefore I joined immediately and learned a lot. Actually, it was interesting. There's a guy named Matt who was there too. So Andy, you might remember. I can't remember his name. It was like a redheaded guy. He played bass, and we would discuss recording also on the old 4-tracks, the greatest invention ever made. And he would talk about the different like tape qualities, which ones were better for bass response. So one of the, anyways, yeah. So hello, Andy. I hope you're seeing this one because how cool. It's awesome, man. I'm very excited to see you. If for people that, are watching this that I've only known from California. I grew up on the East Coast. I grew up outside of Washington, D.C. in a town called Fairfax, which is like a suburb of D.C. And Andy was like a freaking genius, man. This dude, I remember when we were young, early computer type stuff where it was like, it wasn't even, I don't even think Windows was a thing yet. And we were working on, Andy invented a text-based game, a video game that he made all by himself. And I think it was called Dogface. So if you're watching this, Andy, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it was called Dogface, and it was like a sort of choose your own adventure type text-based video game. So you'd get like a little like cue, like, okay, you're at the end of a dock, and what do you want to do? Do you want to jump in the water and swim away from the bad guys, or do you want to turn around and face them and choose yes or no kind of a thing? And if yes, then you turn around, and it was like this like incredibly elaborate thing for like a high school kid to make. And he was like, he had this awesome like storyline. And I think it was about, if I'm not mistaken, and you can correct me, I think it was like some like Vietnam vet type guy, or it was something about like the term dog face being like a term for, soldiers or Marines. I'm not that, I don't remember. My memory is cooked, but I'm pretty sure that was the thing. And then I think you also, Andy, had a like video game creator thing, and we were making like a little superhero game, if I remember correctly. Does that sound correct? It was like, because I distinctly remember like trying to make like a little 8-bit Golden Age Green Lantern type looking guy that was in some game. I don't know. I very vaguely remember this, but I've lived many lifetimes since then, so maybe I'm wrong, but I think that was it. And anyways, it's awesome to hear from you, buddy. I hope you're doing great. And for people that don't know too, Andy is also an author. And yeah, I don't know. We gotta get in touch, man. I don't know. I gotta find a way to get you my number so we can like chat. It'd be fun to talk to you. But anyways, okay. So great to hear from Andy. And then some of the only like, I didn't have too many questions, but I also said I wanted to kind of get into the actual like act of recording. And it's a good sort of segue because when I was hanging out with Andy and we were going to these demo lay dances, one of the guys, this guy, Matt, he also was a bass player. I don't remember if maybe he was into metal, probably, and was recording his own stuff on a 4-track too. And so let me introduce you to the greatest recording device ever known to man. Maybe not. I don't know. Probably not in today's world, but this is the old Tascam Portastudio 424 Mark II. And okay, so the reason particular, I've got two 4-tracks. This one I bought after the one that I originally bought wasn't doing what I wanted it to, but so I have a Mark I or a 414. I think it's the 414. Anyways, the Tascam Portastudio platform is basically back in the 90s when we were young, when I was young. You guys are probably young, but I'm old. So when I was a youngster, recording the hard disk didn't exist. Pro Tools, DAWs, that whole concept, it was non-existent. So you recorded analog. And for a teenager that wanted to record something, or even like a up and coming, musician that wants to put out something, you had to record on tape. And so it was either go into a studio, pay a lot of money to record on a 2-inch tape, fancy analog deck, or you could get these Portastudios. And what they were effectively it was just a very simple thing. It would take a classic, little old cassette tape like this. And the way these work is if you've ever had a tape and you've got a side A and a side B. Side A will play, one side, and side B will play the other side. And both sides are split into a stereo signal. So when you put it on one side, your little Walkman or whatever you're listening to this on is playing half of the tape. So one half of this little teeny tiny 1/8-inch tape. It's going to play, or a 1/4-inch. I don't know. How big is that? Whatever size this is. Half of that on side A, the tape head would only hit that side, and it would split it into a left and a right, two tracks. Meaning that basically you'd get, when you put on your little shitty Walkman headphones, you'd hear something out of this side, something out of this side, and so there'd be a stereo effect, and then you could flip it and listen to the other side. Well, a 4-track basically essentially played the whole thing in one direction. So instead of just getting one side split in the stereo, and then you'd also get the other side split in the stereo. And if you split 2 tracks in the stereo, that's 4 mono tracks. So effectively, the way it worked was you had 4 tracks to work with. And when you'd record on this thing, and I recorded many, many, many songs on these things, and even still do it now because it's sort of like a fun way to find inspiration and limitation. So you have these 4 tracks, and track 1 and 2 would be one side of the tape. 3 and 4 would be the other side of the tape. Okay. And so let's say you wanted to record a full band. So you'd record the drums on track 1, mono drums. You wouldn't get a stereo. You wouldn't get this big expansive panning effect of the toms cascading across left to right or anything like that. It'd just be straight down the middle. But for the longest time, that was how most albums were recorded. The Beatles recorded in mono. Beach Boys recorded in mono. And so you'd have 1 track for drums, maybe 1 track for bass. But then you've got, let's say, 2 guitar players and a singer. So then you would have to take the drums and the bass, you'd set the levels to where you liked them, track 1 and 2 or whatever. Then you'd record both of those. You'd do what's called bouncing them to one of the empty tracks. I hope this makes sense. So you'd record drums, sounds good. Play a bass over that, that sounds good. Set the levels to where you can make it sound, you can hear them both. Then you'd record both of those 2 tracks to one of the empty tracks, which frees up those 2 tracks to record over later. So now you've got, say, track 4 is the drums and the bass mixed together, because those are going to both be monoed in the middle. Maybe you have 2 guitar players. So you have 2 tracks. You could record 1 guitar on one channel, 1 guitar on the other, and pan them left and right. And then you'd still have an empty track for vocals. And you can continue to bounce this way in a sort of a little bit. But if anybody that is old like me and remembers how tapes worked, basically every time you bounce a track or anytime you copy one tape to another tape, you're experiencing generational loss. You're going to lose a little bit of information. It's going to sound a little less high fidelity, a little more lo-fi. And so you'd have to kind of consider these things ahead of time. And the reason why I think this thing is such a great recording tool for even in today's world where everything is in the box, digital, yeah, and everybody's working with DAWs, and depending on whatever DAW you use, these things are, I think, a great tool to mess with. Because if you're in a band, let's say you're even in like a band that makes electronic music, and you play synthesizers and things, you can run a drum machine in instead of a live drum kit. You can even take one of the 4 tracks and write a SMPTE code in today's world that will trigger a MIDI. This is a little bit more complicated, but you can trigger like the drum track to trigger a synth, multiple synths. You could have like multiple tracks going in, and it is very lo-fi. It is very like primitive when you're using like a DAW where you've got like effectively like an infinite amount of tracks that you can use. The only limitation is like the processing speed of your computer, and even then you can still kind of like force extra tracks. But what it does is I think it simplifies the song, and I think that like creativity creates the ability to be creative, having limitations imposed upon that, because we all suffer from like option paralysis in this world. You know, it's like if you just first like start recording with a DAW, you're just like you're 16-year-old kid, you want to start a punk band, you want to record your own stuff because you don't have a lot of money to go to a studio. So you're like, I'm just going to download Reaper or something, and you're going to start recording. Well, if you do that, there is such a massive learning curve, and everything you look for on the internet is going to give you all these crazy like pro level tips of how, like what EQ cuts that you want to make in certain instruments and stuff. It's too much to start with. And if you are a kid, you know, like 16, 17, and you just want to get something down, the sound of it, number one, an analog recording device is what everybody's chasing after. They want that like old tape sound. If you're a punk band and you want to record really quickly, save up, you know, get all your guys together, pitch in $100 a pop, go on eBay and buy one of these 4 tracks, because tapes, they still make tape. I think, I don't know. I still buy tape, so it exists. You can find them, but I bought like a pack of like, I think like 20 of these little tapes. They're short, and I can't remember where I bought them, but I bought them off somewhere online. You know, it's like a pack of them. They're not good quality tape. It's not like the kind of tape you could get back when I was a kid, where you could get this really like, you know, type 2 metal bias or whatever tape that was like, I don't think they make those anymore. These are pretty shitty, but you can still get a good sound quality out of them. And especially because if you get one of these guys that I'm talking about, the Mark II, there's a workaround for the 414, but if you get the 424 Mark II, there are 4 independent track outs. So let's say you're a kid, right? I'm putting myself in like primitive me, 16-year-old recording days. I want to record my band. I don't know how to do it. To set yourself some limitations, if you bought one of these, right, it doesn't have to be the best quality ever, because trust me, nobody's going to listen to this shit anyways. You're just going to try and get gigs. You're going to have something to sell at a show. But you can already see there's two little outs right here already plugged in, because I had just mixed down something, because I still use this thing. This thing has 4 independent outs. Okay, this one particularly, the Tascam 424 Mark II. The 414 Mark II can still do this, but it's a complicated workaround, and maybe I'll show you in a future video. But if you get one of these, I think they're going for about $600 on eBay, which sounds crazy because it's like an obsolete piece of tech. Who cares? Some guy named Mick G, maybe, is that his name? I don't know. Some, you know, SoundCloud rap type guy. He's been using this as a preamp for his guitar. So he'll run his guitar through this and get a real lo-fi, just not even recording to tape. He'll just run a guitar through one of these channels using the integrated preamps that are here, and that directly to a DAW, and that lo-fi guitar sound has apparently become popular with the youngsters. Okay. And so this thing has rocketed up in price because of that, sadly, because it's like basically turning this whole thing into a guitar effects pedal, not even a good one. And even I think Boss or somebody's making a guitar effects pedal that's like mimicking the sort of preamps that these things have integrated. But if you're just a kid and you want to do this, if you record that way, even let's say hypothetically, you don't want to do the bounce. Well, no. I'm going to keep it super simple. Let's say you're a kid, you're in a punk band, you got a guitar player, a drummer, a bass player, and a singer. Okay. 4 people in the band, 1 drum, 1 guitar, 1 bass, 1 sing. Okay. You guys each got your own track. You record onto this. You don't even have to mix it perfectly because you can take the individual outputs right out of the back. Tracks 1, 2, 3, 4 can go out into a DAW. So if you have a DAW, if you've got an interface that can handle 4 inputs, you could record onto this tape, dump them into the DAW. They've got that glorious analog tape sound, and then you just set the levels. You don't even have to do a whole heck of a lot to mix it. You can if you really want to get nerdy, but most of the sound you're chasing after anyway is what you're getting on the tape. And the learning thing that it teaches you is, number one, to pay attention to the sound going in. Because one thing I've learned after years of trying to record and make things sound good is I would always start with, I'd record whatever and think I could fix it in a mix. And if you really want to spend weeks, and trust me, I have spent way too many hours just simply like with an EQ program trying to find what it is about one track that's irritating me. Usually the bass, because I like bass and I play bass. But guitars, I mean, it's like crazy how you make one small EQ curve or adjustment, and the guitar goes from sounding, it's like an abstract painting where you've got if you're painting and you're kicking ass, you've got this cool abstract going and everything's looking great. And then you do one little thing and the whole painting sucks. And that's the way it is when you're trying to mix these sounds. It's like you're trying to get a good guitar sound and you're messing with EQ or you're messing with whatever parameter, and the smallest little thing will just ruin everything. And then you're back to square one because you're trying to figure out what it is. What did I just do that screwed this thing up? And why does it sound like shit now? Why is it too thin? Why is it too fat? Why is it too dull? Why is it too shrill? Like whatever it is, the more options you have, the more you're going to spend wasting your time doing this. And then instead of writing new songs, you're just going to spend, and believe me, the people I love can attest to this. I spend my every waking moment is trying to fix something on some mix that I'm doing. This thing removes that from the equation because there's nothing to it. There's nothing you can really do. You can't really mess with it. There's like a 3-band EQ. You've got a high, mid, and low. So if it's too shrill in the mids, maybe turn the mid down. You want to turn the treble down. You want to bump the bass up, turn up the bass. It's very limited. And because of that, if you record on these little 4 tracks and then you input it into a DAW, then you mix it just barely in that, it's still going to sound pretty good. Like it's not going to sound like a pro record. But if you're a punk band and you want to make something, you can make a quick 7-inch, like some hardcore band, some lo-fi, shrill hardcore band can definitely use one of these things. And it, not only that, but it gives you the cachet of like, well, it was recorded on tape and it was like, the lo-fi-ness is part of a selling point. So if I were a youngster, I was just starting a band, and I didn't know how to do any of this stuff, in the world of recording, I would 100% buy one of these things because it's a valuable learning tool. It teaches you to make sure to pay attention to the sound going into something because you can't really mess with it too much once you get it in there. So once you record it, it's kind of what you have. And overdubbing it's much more complex. So you actually have to like rehearse and practice your songs to know what to play. It's just a great learning tool. So my little sales pitch is save up the money instead of going into a studio, buy one of these things. It's going to teach you a lot about the sort of the basics of recording, the real like meat of recording. You can 100% learn on one of these little 4 tracks because it helps you like sort of, number one, realize you've got to be rehearsed. You've got to know what you're going to play before you play it. You can't just like make it up as you're going along because you can only record over the tape so many times before it starts to wear. So you got to get a good take in the first few takes. You got to just sort of pay attention to the sound that you're getting. If you're miking up an amp or if you're going in direct, you want to make sure that's set ahead of time while you're doing it so that you don't have to like listen back later and go, oh, this sounds horrible. So it makes your ear train a little bit better. And it also teaches you to just kind of be free with it. Like, you don't have to treat everything like it's perfect. If it sucks, just record over it, start again, whatever. So if I were a kid and I was 16, 17, starting a band, I would definitely, if I could talk to myself at that age, I'd say buy one of these things, which I had at that age. And it taught me a crap ton that translated way later on, and even today. Not that I'm some genius engineer or anything. I still suck. I'm still trying and learning constantly, but it has helped me like understand the thing I'm looking for, and help me understand and listen to things and pay attention on a little deeper level. In fact, I use it for all kinds of stuff. So I still record onto this thing. So this is an example of something that I kind of record. I'm just going to play in the background. I don't know if this will probably sound terrible coming through this little guy, but here's an example of something that started on a 4-track and has graduated to something else, but it sounds like this. Some of the new stuff I'm recording. So I don't know what it's going to be for, but it's something I've been working on. I'm working on a bunch of these little songs that I kind of started in Africa, then I started messing with on a 4-track, then moved it into the realm of digital. Anyways, something I'm working on. So something I wanted to mention all the way back in the first video that I did when I started doing this again is talking about a 4-track, and I think that they are a valuable tool. Please consider checking them out. If you've got the money, just go ahead and buy one. They're fun to mess with. You'll have a good time, and you'll save a lot more. You can't buy plugins, you can't buy extra stuff. I mean, unless you've really got some coin and you want to buy hardware stuff. But to keep it simple and easy, it teaches you to kind of like be a little bit more creative, I think. I feel like limitations help increase creativity, because there's just so much you can, it's like when you go to a grocery store and you want to buy a can of corn and there's like 15,000 different brands. So like, you don't even know what to decide on. It's option paralysis. We have too many options, and definitely in the world of digital recording, you're going to experience that. So if you stick with something just very basic and very simple, it'll actually, I think, improve both your ability to play, your understanding of songwriting as a process, and thinking of something in a holistic way, instead of just, I'm the bass player, I want a cool bass part. It's like parts have to support other parts, and parts have to back off when another thing is happening. So, if your guitar player is going to go off on something, you don't want to be also going off on the bass, because it's just going to be too much, And I'm kind of a maximalist when it comes to like making my own stuff. I just keep throwing everything in there. But part of the mixing process for me is also just, after I've thrown everything in there, I just start pulling stuff out. Like, okay, delete this synth track, delete this one, delete this thing. And it's like carving it. It's like you throw everything into the pot and then you start pulling out until it sounds good. The 4-track helps expedite that and makes you more creative, and you get to like crank out songs and spend more time making songs instead of just tweaking out on like, why doesn't my snare sound, it's not enough snap in the snare. Oh no, now it's got too much snare in the snare, and I want more top end, and I want less low end, and oh shit, now I got to go buy way better mics because the mics I'm using are shit. It's like, if you just start with crap, you start with bargain basement, whatever, like, you get like one of these for your guitar amp, you can use it for the bass amp, you can use it for the vocals, you can use this for the drums. I remember in high school, I think the way I recorded drums was literally just like one mic on a mic stand pointing at the drums. And plenty of black metal, if you listen to black metal, Dark Throne was famously recorded on a 4-track. If you like Skinny Puppy like I do, the early back and forth tape, that was done on a 4-track. Like, a lot of like important things were done on these things. If you like Big Black, Steve Albini, the producer of In Utero by Nirvana, his band, Big Black, he recorded on a 4-track. tons of stuff has been recorded on this thing. And it's like a pretty good, like the fidelity is good. It's not as shitty as you'd think, even on like some crappy, like garbage tape like this thing. And I don't, like I said, I can't remember where I found this. Maybe I'll put a link in the description to tell you like where I bought these, but I bought like it came in like a box of a bunch of these, and they're short, but they're long enough for one song. Yeah, it's fun. It's good. It's a good way to just stay creative and not feel like tied to like some perfect sound, because you can't get a perfect sound out of it. So you just get what you get. But surprisingly, that getting what you get turns into what you want. It's like that. It's just raw. It sounds good. It's perfect for punk. And I think perfect for garage electronic type stuff. It's what a lot of people are trying to get in a DAW. But you can do it with one-time investment of whatever it costs to buy one on eBay, and a bunch of these things, and you can go to like places and still find tapes. Record shops have them. I still go. There's like a local record shop called Rhino Records, and when I go in, they'll have some like old, good quality tapes, and I'll buy a couple of those when I'm in there and use them. And anyways, so that's that. Okay, so the one question, the one question I had was by my buddy Tony, and Tony asked me, interestingly enough, nothing pertinent to like what I'm talking about, but about a comic book I did way back in the day. I made a comic book called Ghastly Jack, and he asked, how did I do that? How did I come up with it? So I found some of my old pages, and I'll tell you exactly how I arrived at it. And so basically, I mean, I've always been a humongous like comic nerd, and always wanted to make my own. And so way early on, when I moved to California, I was like, I'm going to make a comic, and I didn't know how to do it. I didn't have any resources as a kid growing up. I had fairly decent like artistic skills as a kid, but none of my teachers or anybody knew, like, they didn't foster that. They were thinking in terms of, paint a still life of some flowers, and I wanted to draw superheroes or monsters fighting or whatever. And the tools that are used in classic traditional comic book art are very specific because of the technology that was available at the time when comics were invented to reproduce them. And it was limited by what they had. And so basically it was a classic like dip pen, a Crowquill Hunt 102 nib, and a Winsor Newton Series 7 number 2 brush, and India ink, and 11x17 paper. And that kind of defined what made comic book art look the way it did. It took me a long time to learn this because I didn't have the internet at the time, and I would go to the library and check out books on this stuff. And then eventually I found like a great book, and I wish I still had it. I don't know what I did with it, but it was just a book on how to like create comics, and included those items. And then since then I've bought like the classic How to Draw Comics the Marvel Way that was put out by John Buscema and Stan Lee, and it goes into the instruments that you use. Anyways, long story short, too late. It's already long. But I always wanted to make a comic, and I knew I liked horror things. I liked scary things, but I also liked superhero things, and I wanted to make a character that was kind of like a cross between the two, kind of like a Man Thing or Swamp Thing or Werewolf by Night, or that kind of a vibe where it's like a hero, but he's also a monster. And so I had been sketching little ideas, not intending to like turn it into a comic or anything, but I ended up sketching this guy, and I liked the way he looked, and it was kind of like a witchy zombie thing. And then I covered his face with his hat, like Lon Baudet does with Cheech Wizard. And I thought that looked cool. And it was kind of, very indie comics style. I was a huge fan of the black and white indie comics explosion of the 80s and 90s. And so I wanted to make something like that. And I had these books telling me what to buy. So I went to this little art store downtown. Oh gosh, I can't remember what it was called, but it was off of E Street. But there was like an old timey like art supply store, and it had drawers that had these old nibs in them. And I bought all this stuff I needed there, and the India ink and stuff, and the Bristol board and everything like that it said to buy in the book. And so I started messing around and trying to get, teach myself how to do it. And the early attempts were, as you would expect, horrible. But when I arrived on this guy, I came up with the idea of like, maybe I'll just make what's called an ash can. So in the day, back in the day when a new comic was coming out or somebody was pitching a comic, they would often make these things called ash cans. And they were called ash cans because they would end up in the trash can, or the other term called ash can. And they would be like printed on cheap paper, just like a sort of like flimsy little Xerox version of like, here's my sales pitch, here's my thing. So I wanted to make one of those, and I printed it on, I printed it at a place where we did posters. But the original pages I have right here, so I'm going to show you. So here was actually the very first page I ever did of any kind of comic, anything, or anything pertinent to this. So I'll show you. It's this. And if you can see it, it's not on 11 by 17 paper. Like, here's my fingers. It's on, I think I cut it in half because I knew I was going to print it on a half size thing. So it's like half of a page. And this thing, this actual character. So one of my friends, Kersey, told me about a nightmare she had where she had a dream of this like clown chasing her down a hallway with a flaming mattress and like slamming it against the walls, which sounds insane, but it's a dream. And I thought that sounded so cool and so pure, like a kid's dream. So I turned that little Jack-in-the-Box guy was supposed to be that. That's where the sketch originated. But then my main character is in there somewhere, right there at the bottom. This guy. So he fights this thing. It's a very like basic, nothing to it story. But after I started doing that, I became like beyond obsessed. I was like, this is the most fun I've ever had, like sitting there, focused drawing. And so I decided, you know what, I could, so I made like I think it was a 8-page comic, because if you take like one big page, print it both sides, fold it in quarters. I'm not a math guy. Is that right? I don't know. Halves? Shoot. I don't know. Somehow, I think I made a 8-page comic where it's basically my main character, this guy, Ghastly Jack, fighting this like Jack-in-the-Box thing. And the implied storyline was that there was like more going on in the background. So then after finishing it, I was like, that was super fun. I want to actually, let me try to like make a real one. So I started to draw, and I decided let's do the full-size stuff. Oops. And it looked like this. Well, these are pages from the second issue, but you'll see like the size difference. Yeah. So it's like a page. Now, there's my hand. You can see how much bigger it is. This guy, he's got a Iron Lung t-shirt because I was infatuated with the band, the two-man band Iron Lung at the time. So these, here's some more, same issue. That one, this one, I'm having a hard time seeing, so I don't know if this is lining up. But anyway, so after I made that little ash can, which was a blast to make, I was like, I want to make a real comic. So I wrote a script, kinda, and drew all the pages in the comic. And then I wanted to print it, but I really wanted to print it on newsprint, because that was the way that comics were printed back when I liked them. And when the ones I still buy, I pretty much stopped buying new stuff. I like old-fashioned 80s, 70s, Bronze Age era stuff. And so I looked around, and the only place near me that could do that was the place that printed the the Press Enterprise in Riverside. It was the newspaper from Riverside, which is a neighboring city to San Bernardino. And I called them up and I was like, hey, I want to print a comic book. Can you guys do that? And the sales rep lady that I talked to was amenable to it and said it wasn't too bad. I don't remember how much it cost me, but it wasn't that. It was like a king's ransom at the time. But now it probably wasn't much. I'm thinking it was like $1,500 or something for like 5,000 of these things, which I still have a ton because I never really sold them. So I've just got these long boxes full of these things. But I printed them at the place that prints the Press Enterprise, which I don't think exists anymore. But at the time, this is back in like 2005, 6, somewhere around there. And I printed all these things and it was cool because they came in like bundles the way that a newspaper does. And as a kid, you know, if you've ever delivered newspapers, they come like wrapped with those plastic things. So it was both good and bad because the top 5 copies and the bottom 5 copies were ruined by the like constriction of these like plastic bands on them. And it was just like bundles of these things when we picked them up. So that, you know, at least 10 per stack were wrecked, unsellable, just like complete trash. But the rest of them were okay and they were good. And so I ended up getting a booth at Comic-Con back in the day. I don't remember what year it was, but it was soon after also that we had recorded our second 7-inch. And so I had, you know, 2 7-inches to sell, a CD to sell, and I made a cool booth and went down to Comic-Con. And it was back in the day where you could actually, with being broke, still afford some kind of a booth. And I don't know how I did it. I just had a booth and it was awesome. So I had the whole weekend at San Diego Comic-Con, the biggest comic convention, and had a booth and met one of my best friends of all time, Steve Hale, who came by our booth and with his buddy Kevin, and I was sitting right next to Alex Pardee, who is an incredible artist. He does the comic Bunny With. He was like the booth next to me, so we were like hanging out the whole time. It was crazy. It was amazing, and it's not the kind of thing you could do anymore, but that's how I made it. I just basically had the idea. I just wanted to make a superhero / monster-y guy because I'm into horror and I'm into comics and stuff. So Ghastly Jack ended up being this kind of witchy, horror adjacent, superhero adjacent character that was fun to draw, that I would doodle around and come up with. And I still am working on a 3rd issue that's in like 2 decades in the process. I don't know. It's like one of those like the lowest on the totem pole of projects, and when I finally get around to it, I'll finish it. But I've done like 5 or 6 pages. In fact, I think on this channel if you go back in time on this thing, you can find some pages of me like inking stuff. But that's the question answered, I guess. I hope that answers the question, Tony. Yeah. And the other one was, I think you asked about like, what was the first song when we first started playing that really made it feel like it was a band? And I think the song was a long defunct song, but it was called Somebody Get Me Out of Here, or Get Me Out of Here. I don't remember what the title was, but the chorus was Somebody Get Me Out of Here. I just don't feel quite right. And it was, I think that was the song that made it feel like, okay, this is like a band. Basically the way the band started was, we started practicing. We all met and wanted to start a band. I was like insistent upon this thing, and I had a very distinct vision. I was like, we're going to wear makeup. We're going to be theatrical. I want to do a Kiss, Misfits, Alice Cooper, something, right? I'm not a handsome guy. I wanted to wear something, right? And I get stage fright. So the makeup kind of gives you a bit of a psychic shield, and met luckily a few other musicians that were willing to do this, because Slipknot had just bursted on the scene. So people were a little more like, okay, well, I guess that's okay. Our early guitar player, Mike, his girlfriend was like, well, I'll book you a show. And she just like literally booked us a show. We were hanging out at a place in San Bernardino called Bricks. I think we were seeing the band Narcoleptic Youth, who I still is a fantastic local band. But they were playing at this place called Bricks. It doesn't exist. It's like some crappy little like fly by night little like venue that lasted probably like a couple weeks. But she walked up to the owner and was like, hey, we got a band and we want to play here. And he booked us. And so we had this deadline. So we were basically like we gotta write some songs. Up until then, we were just kind of playing covers and stuff because I had been in a band in high school and would play covers. So it forced me to write songs and force everybody to be like, hey, we got to write some songs. And we did. And I think the first one that I wrote that I really was like actually proud of, and I was like, these lyrics aren't horrible. The riff is okay. It's kind of a decent song, was that song. And we don't play it anymore. It doesn't exist. Nobody's ever going to hear it because it's garbage by my standards today. But at the time, it was like this was kind of the first one where I felt like, okay, this is we can be like an actual band. All right. Well, thanks for letting me waste your time for 40 minutes. I hope you've had an enjoyable evening. I forgot to introduce myself at the beginning, but I am Ralph. And this is my little corner of the internet, and I hope you guys had a wonderful night. It's a treat to do this, and it's super fun to like hear from people. And I'm sorry I'm not very good about like replying in the comments, but I will, in my own way, reply at some point. But yeah, that's it. Anyways, have a great night. I hope this was fun, enjoyable. I don't know. I have no idea what I'm doing, but it's better than digging ditches, I guess. All right, you guys have a great night. Take care of yourselves, and I'll see you next week. Adios.